Hey guys, this is Unit 7, the first half of it. It's the statistics part. I've assigned all of the Mathletics statistics parts for this because I think they're really useful. It also has a test at the end, but I know some of them, the textbook doesn't really cover a couple things on here, so I wanted to make a video for just it. Do these in order from top to bottom. They'll be assigned on your page, and try to do your best, try to get those 10 out of 10s. I'm going to do a couple little examples here of the ones that involve what are called frequency tables. After that, I'll tell you what group frequency is, and then there's something that's called deviation. So this activity is calculating the mode from the frequency table. Calculate the mode, it says. So just looking here, this is what's called a frequency table. What this means is you have a bunch of numbers that are in a set of data, a bunch of numbers, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25. And on the right is the frequency that those numbers appear in the list of data. This is a really good way of organizing data when you are going to have a lot of the same values. You could use tallies or you could count up every time you get that value. So what this is saying is there are 10 21s in the list. There's 18 22s, there's 9 23s, there's 20 24s, and there's 5 25s. So which one is the most frequent? Which one would be the mode? Remember, mode is the most common. Which has the most common frequency? Well, it's the one that's going to have the highest frequency, which is, there's 20 of them. It's 24. So our mode for this question would be 24. Okay. I need to press submit again. The mode on this one is the one that there's the most of. 18 is the highest number, so it would be 3. So the ones with mode are pretty simple. You likely will not need to use paper for them, but the ones that are mean, you probably will. All right, here's the median from the frequency table. Looking at this question, there's 5 2s, there's 2 4s, there's 1 6, there's 12 8s, and there's 4 10s. Remember, median is trying to find the middle number. So it's gonna, if you count from either ends, you're gonna find there's some sort of middle number. So if we count here, we have 5 plus 2 plus 1 is 8, and 4 plus 12 is 16. 16 is a lot bigger than 8, right? Basically, you add up the sets of numbers until you get to a point where you see the one, it's going to be in that amount. Because 16 here is bigger than 8, I know that it's going to be one of these 8s that's the middle number. So the median would be 8 because that 12 is a pretty large value. Let's do this again with another question. Okay, so we've got 5 plus 4 is 9 plus 1 is 10. We've got 12 here. Now, if we take 2 of these here from this 8 and move it here, it's going to make that a 12, which means the rest of them are going to be these 40s that are in the list of numbers. I'm going to draw this out just in a moment to show this. Once I get a frequency table with smaller numbers. All right, so here's a frequency table. The questions I kept getting were more difficult. So what this is saying, this X, it's saying that there's 3 1s, there's 6 3s, and there's 2 5s in the set. So instead of writing out all these numbers, there's a table that you kind of just keep track of it. Oh, there's a 1, there's another 1, there's a 1, a bunch of 3s, and 2 5s. So that's what a frequency table is showing. Now this question is calculating the mean from a frequency table, which is one of the more difficult questions. You're going to want to use paper for this. I'm just going to show this question here. We have 6 21s, we have 16 22s, we have 14 23s, and we have 17 24s. I'm going to write this question on paper and show you how I do it on paper, and then we'll enter our answer. All right, here we go. We've got 6 21s. We've got 16 22s, 14 23s, and 17 24s. So remember, the mean is all of the values added up divided by the number of values. Now the number of values is going to be your frequency numbers, because each of these represents one of the numbers in the set added up. So 6 plus 6 plus 4 is 16, plus 7 is 23. So this would be 53. That's the number we're going to divide by to get our mean. And then to find out all of these added up, we're not just adding these numbers, because remember, we have 6 21s. We have 16 22. So we need to multiply first. We're going to take these numbers and multiply them by each other and then add those up. So we need to do 21 times 6. We need to do 22 times 16. And we need to do 23 times 14. We need to do 24 times 17. And then add all of those up, all those values up. Put it here and divide by 53. So 21 times 6, it's going to be 6. It's going to be 12, because 1 times 6 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12, so 126. Right here, we've got 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times 2 is still 12, plus 3 is 132. Write a 0, because we're then going to multiply this 1 by these numbers, but remember this 1 is in the tens place, so this is actually a 10. That's why we put the 0 here. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 2 is 2. Add it up. We've got 2, 5, 3. 352. Do it again. 4 times 3 is 12. 4 times 2 is 8, plus 1 is 9. Put a 0. 1 times 3 is 3. 1 times 2 is 2. Add it up. We've got 2, 2, carry the 1, 3, 2, 2. Finally, 28, 16, carry the 0. 1 times 4 is 4. 1 times 2 is 2. Add it up. 8, 10, carry the 1, 4. And finally, we need to add up all these numbers. Okay, I wrote down those answers in columns so I can add. 6 plus 2 plus 2 is 10, plus 8 is 18. Carry the 1. 1, 3, 8, 10. Carry the 1. 1 plus 1 is 2, plus 3 is 5, plus 3 is 8, plus 4 is 12. So it's 1,208 divided by 53. So we can do some long division. 53 doesn't go into 1. 53 doesn't go into 12. 53 does go to 122 times. 53 times 2 is 106. So we're going to subtract. We get 0, can't subtract, so we need to carry and go like that. And we're going to end up with 4 and 1 and 0. Bring the 8 down. 8 is brought down. 53 goes into 148 2 times. It's still 106. Subtract again. 2, 4. It's 42. Now when we run out of numbers to bring down, that's where our decimal goes. That's where our decimal goes. We put a 0 and bring it down. Okay, 53 goes into 420, I think 7 times. It's not 8, because 8 times 3 is 24, and 8 times 5 would be 400. This is 420, not 424, so it has to be less. This has to be a 7 here. And we're going to have 7 times 53, which is 371, because 7 times 3 is 21, and 7 times 5 is 350. 21 plus 350 is 371. We're going to subtract this. We need to borrow 1, make this a 10. It's going to be a 9. We need to borrow again. This becomes an 11, which is 4, which is 49 left over. So we have 49. Then we're going to bring down one more time, because we need to make sure. I know it said in the question that we need to do it to 1 decimal place, but we need to figure out whether this next digit will tell this digit to round up. So we go to 2 and then round. So bring that down. We have a 0 down here. 53 goes into 490 9 times, because 9 times 50 is 450. and 9 times 3 is 27. So 27 plus 450 is 479. I'm going to say 477. Sorry about that. But we already know that this 9's here. We don't need to continue this because the question said to only go to 1 decimal place. Now this 9 is bigger than 5. So that means it's going to cause this number to round up. So our mean that we have here is going to be this 22.8. So that's what our answer is. So just to point this out, 1 decimal means 1 decimal place. So we just put 1 decimal digit to the right of the decimal, where that 8 is. I'm going to walk through that question just one more quick time. To get your denominator, you add all of the frequency numbers. And then to get your numerator, you multiply your frequency by each of these values that you have, which is what I did here. Then you add all those up, and that becomes your numerator. Then you're going to take this and calculate it. You could do long division. In these questions, I'm actually okay if you do use a calculator. I tried doing it with my head, and it took a while, and I tried doing some long division to show this 2-digit long division. But you could use a calculator for this last part with the division if you'd like to, although I think it's important to do it without. And finally, we need it to round to 1 decimal place because that's what the answer asked us to do. There are these questions here that are called group frequency questions. They're actually kind of simple. All you're doing here is there's a range of it, okay? So any number that's from 26 to 30, so that'd be 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, would go in this group. So you'd go through all these numbers here and find all the ones that are between 26 and 30. There's one right there, there's one right there, so that's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So we'd write 8 here. Then we go through and we count again until we have all these numbers here filled in with what the ranges would be. So 31 to 35 is another one. 36 to 40 would go in here. Now, as far as I know, all these questions will have 10 in a row. But you need to count and multiply 10 times 4, so there's 40 numbers here, which means that this frequency, all of these need to add up to 40. So if you get to the end and you want to check your answer, just make sure that the number of numbers here matches the numbers that you've put in your frequency table. And finally, the last activity before the unit test is the difference and deviation from mean. All this is talking about deviation is how far away a number is from the mean. So what you need to do first is calculate the mean for these numbers. You're going to add all of them up and divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's 5 numbers. So you're going to add all of these, then divide by 5 because there's 5 numbers, and that'll give you your mean. Then you're going to find the difference between the number that's written here and the mean. So let's do this one. So 70 plus 180 plus 90 plus 140 plus 170 is 650. And then 650 divided by 5 would be 130. So our mean would be 130. Now, how different is 140 from 130? Well, 140 subtract 130 is 10. So you just take the bigger one of the number that's written here and the mean, and you subtract the big one, subtract the small one. So that would be 10 for this question. So I hope that gives a little bit of help on how to do these Mathletics questions. There's lots of them, but practice makes better. It's awesome the time you guys are putting into doing your Mathletics.